Alright guys, so you just bought a 1,000-yard rifle and now you're asking yourselves, how do you get it to 1,000? In today's video, I'm going to go over my process and how I take a rifle from 100 yards to 1,000 yards in as little steps as possible. Now, for the purpose of this video, it is important that your scope is already leveled and mounted perfectly. I'm not going to go over how to do that in this video, but if you would like a video on how to mount a scope and get it level, then let me know in the comments. But for this video, we've already mounted the scope. Scope's already level. So I'm going to go from 0 to 1,000 and show you guys how to do it. Now, to do this with your rifle, there's a couple things you do need and should have. One of the should haves is a good chronograph. That is obviously the best method on how to do it because it will give you accurate muzzle velocities. And the reason this is important is when we work ourselves back to a farther distance, we can trust our velocities, so we will change different things in our ballistics app, such as ballistic coefficient and things like that, to true up our rifle. Now, if you do not have one of these, then that's okay. We'll go off of the velocity that the box of ammo says that you have, and we will work our way that way with just truing velocities. Now, obviously, the most accurate would be to have a chronograph and get a accurate muzzle velocity, because then when you go to a farther distance and you shoot and you true it up, you're changing your ballistic coefficient to be even more accurate. Whereas if you do not have accurate velocities and you're just changing the velocity in your app to match your dope chart, then that's only going to get you accurate to whatever distance you do this at. So say here at my range today, we've got 580 yards. Say you do it at 580 yards, you're zeroed at 100, you go out to 580, shoot, and you're a little low, so then you change the velocity in your app to where you're dead on, then that's fine. You will be perfect at 580, which is a reasonable distance. Everything between 100 and 580, between that, you're going to be just a little high, but not high enough that it'll matter. But then past 580 to 1,000 is when it's going to start to open back up again. And that is why, if you can, it is preferred to have a chronograph so that your velocities are good, and then it's your ballistic coefficient that you are changing, so the actual bullet to match your dope. And then that will get you perfect at every distance that you shoot, as long as your math is correct. The other thing you're going to need is a ballistic calculator. Now, I prefer, there's two of them that I really like. There's the AB Quantum app, and then there's the Revic Ops app. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use the Revic app because, in my opinion, it's a little easier to use. I do like the AB Quantum app, and there's tons of features on there that are awesome, but the Revic app is a little easier to use, so we're going to do that. This isn't a should. You have to have this, in my opinion, to be shooting 1,000 yards. Trusting a piece of paper that you printed off the internet, or just going off of the box of ammo that says, okay, at 100 yards you're here, 500 yards you're 12 inches low. That's not accurate. This is the only way to do it. Once you've got it in your app and you're perfect, then you can start working out, printing out your dope charts for your temperature and your elevation. So that, because I know a lot of people, when they're hunting in the heat of the moment, they don't want to be pulling out their phones and typing a lot of stuff because the animal is right in front of them and they need to get on it. So I'll show you how to print out a table solution once you have everything in here. But you've got to have everything accurate and perfect in your app so that your dope chart is 100% accurate. So let's go over that today. Alright guys, so we've got our rifle set up. Something I should mention before we do this that is important as far as the scope goes is setting our parallax. And for those of you that don't know what it is, parallax basically is when you're looking through the scope and you're bobbing your head up and down without touching the rifle and the reticle is moving. We want to get rid of that, and there's To do that, on the side of your scope is your parallax adjustment. Now, common mistake that most people make, I've even made before, is just adjusting that. So basically you want to adjust it until your target is in focus, and essentially that should get rid of parallax. But the mistake people make is not setting their diopter, which is setting the focus of their actual reticle to your eye. So the reason this is important is because you'll set the focus of the target, say at 100 yards here, it'll seem fine. Then you go at a farther distance, and you'll notice that when the target's in focus, you'll bob your head and it's still moving. So you gotta keep adjusting that. So your parallax is actually off. And you'll notice there's times you can bob your head enough and that reticle will move more than a minute of angle. And this really comes into play as far as missing targets when you're not set up behind the rifle the same. So obviously bench resting, if your parallax is off but you're zeroed, you're going to be fine because you're sitting there setting up the same way. But then when you go to do a steep mountain shot and you're prone or whatever, and you're behind the rifle just a little different, so you're not looking to that scope the exact same way you normally would, that's when that problem comes up. So to fix that, what I like to do is you can either look at the sky or put a white piece of paper in front of your scope, and you're focusing on the reticle itself, nothing else. And you want to, on my Night Force, it's right here, you spin this ring back and you spin the scope, and you want to spin the reticle, or spin the focus dial until the reticle is crisp and clean. Now don't stare at it too long. Make sure you look at it, then close your eye and look away, because your brain will automatically try to focus for you, which we don't want, because then it'll be playing tricks on us. So you want to spin this first and until the reticle is in focus. Once that is set, you never want to touch that again. You might want to look it over every now and again. You know, people's eyes change or you bump your scope, but that is something you don't play with in the field. You don't sit there and adjust that. Once that is set, you leave it. Then the parallax adjustment on the side of your rifle is what you're using out in the field. So here at 100 yards, I'm going to go until it's in focus right there. Okay, that's set at 100 yards. And in theory, if we did it correctly, then when I go and shoot 1,000 yards, I just spin it until my target is in focus, and I should be good. I should be able to bob my head and notice no movement whatsoever. So if you've done that correctly, then you're good to go. All right, guys, so once you've got your target set up, your chronograph set up, and your scope is ready to go, what you're going to do is take the bolt out of the rifle. Now, this is called bore sighting. It's my preferred method, and I like to do it at 100 because I don't want to shoot any more than I have to. The whole purpose of this is basically to save ammo. So I'm going to go to my actual zero range, which I recommend 100 yards, and you're going to stare through the bore of the rifle and try to get the target right down the rifle. You should be able to, that's why you want to pick a good target. I've got an orange target down there. So I'm going to move the rifle. Right there is pretty good. I can see the center of that paper. And then without bumping the rifle, you're going to look through the scope and see where you're at. So right here I can see that with my rifle, from my naked eye, it looks like I'm dead on target. Here I am perfect elevation wise, it looks like, but my reticle is to the left of that target. So now I'm going to adjust that, and here's where it's a little tricky. You're going to go backwards of what you think, because where we have not actually shot, you're not moving you're not walking your reticle in to where you're hitting. It's backwards. Kind of crappy of explaining it, but just trust me. So right here where my reticle is left of the target, I am going to spin left. And this is really helpful if you have got a scope with MOA in it, first focal plane preferably. And the reason being is I can look through there and count my marks, and right there it shows 10 MOA. So in theory, I am 10 MOA to the left. So I'm going to go 10 MOA to the left here. Okay, once I've done that, I am going to go ahead and fire my first shot. So we'll get set up, get loaded, making sure that the chronograph is on, because every shot through your chronograph, if you have it, is just more data to add, and it's going to make you that much more accurate. Now it's really important to try to be steady. Okay, that's pretty close. That one is on paper, it looks like. And like I said, this one's not going to be perfect because this was off of a bore sight, so it's as good as you make it. Clear the chamber. Okay, what we're going to go do now is go measure our target, see how far we're off, and then make adjustments from there. Alright, so right here it looks like we're about 1.5 inches to the left and 1 inch high. And this is an inch square target, but you can take a tape measure. I'm going to show you. I use an app called ballistic-X, which is pretty sweet. You take a picture of it, and you have to have a 1 inch reference, which is why these targets are awesome. But you take a picture of it, and it'll do all the math for you, and it'll actually tell you how big a group size you have once you've shot a group. So, all right, guys, so we've measured our target, and we are 1.5 inches to the left and 1 inch low. So there's two things you can do. That's pretty close to center. That if you've got a high quality scope and you trust your scope, to save ammo, you could go ahead and just shoot your group from right there, not change anything, and then get the center of your group and move from there. But for the purpose of this video, we're just gonna pretend like I was 10 inches off, so we're gonna move it and then shoot our group. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and move our turret down 1 inch. It's important to be familiar with your scope. Some scopes are more complicated when zeroing, especially with a zero stop. For instance, my Night Force, I could go up, but since my zero stop is set and I need to go down, I've got to spin my clutch plates out of the way to allow me to do that. And then retighten them. And put my turret back on. Now that it's on, we can go ahead and move it down 1 minute of angle, which is 1 inch. Also important to note, I am shooting with a scope that is set up in minutes of angle, and for those of you that don't know, 1 minute of angle is roughly 1 inch at 100 yards. It's actually 1.047 inches, but that doesn't really matter unless you're a competition shooter and you're wanting to hit, you want to be within inches at 1,000. But I will go ahead and put up the formula for those of you that are interested. Now, if you're shooting in MRAD, don't quote me on this, I believe it's 3.33 inches per 100 yards, 1 mil. I could be wrong, but the formula is the same. The math is the same, just different numbers, and I'll show you that math. But so at 100 yards, I was 1 inch high, so I went 1 minute down, and I was 1.5 inches left, so I went 1.5 minutes right. So now that we've done that, now is when we will shoot our 3-shot group. Okay, now that we have zeroed our scope off of our first initial shot, we are going to go ahead and shoot a group. Now, obviously, the more rounds fired, the more accurate you're going to be. A 5 to 10 shot group is preferred, but like I said, we're trying to do this in as little steps as possible, because I know a lot of people, they don't want to blow through ammo. Ammo is expensive, so we're going to do a 3-shot group and go from there. Okay, that one's a little low and right. Now, I know it's tempting to want to move it from there, but we want to go for a group. We could have flyers that is factory ammo, and you don't know how tight of a group you're shooting, so. Okay, shoot our third shot. Okay, that is a pretty tight group. Let's check our velocities. Okay, so here we're getting an average of 2687. So this is going to be important for our ballistic app to be more accurate. Now you'll notice here, standard deviation is not the greatest, neither is extreme spread, but this is factory ammo. Okay, so our elevation was pretty good. We're just a little low. I'm just as far right as I was left, so I'll have to look back. I might have made an error on my part and lost count, and had already moved it and then moved it again. So hopefully that's not the case, but if that is, that's on me. But so what we're going to do here now is, with our ballistic-X app, we're going to go ahead and take a picture of it, of the target. Now you want it kind of flat and centered. And then here we're going to establish our 1-inch reference. If you do not have 1-inch squares on here and you're using this app, then the tape measure in the picture would help. And then we're going to select the yardage that we shot at, 100 yards. Select our bullet, it's 6.5. And then we're going to mark our point of aim right there. And then we're going to mark our shots. So shot 1, shot 2, shot 3. And right here it's going to tell us our group size. We've got a .492 MOA group, which is not bad, especially for factory ammo. That is a pretty dang good group. I'll take it. And then our ATZ adjustment to 0 set in MOA is up 0.31. Now my scope is in 0.25 or quarter MOA increments, so we're just going to go up 1 and call it good. We'll be 0.06 MOA low, which does not matter at all. And then right here it's saying left 1.47 MOA, which that's how far right we went. So I do think I went right twice. But all right, so we've shot our 3-shot group and we've got the amount of adjustment we need to move it. After looking at my scope, I did go too far. So I'm going to go back 1.5 and it should be money. It would have been money had I not made that mistake. But once we get that all zeroed, we'll do that right now. Okay, so we needed to go up 0.31, which is just one click, 0.25. Now we'll take our cap off. Spin our clutch plate to 0. Re-enabling the 0 stop. Tighten it down. Now I recommend, like I said, it's important to be familiar with your scope and to avoid any mistakes, kind of like what I made. I recommend really getting familiar with it and reading through the directions so that you're not making any mistakes and going the wrong way, because otherwise you'll just waste bullets and a lot of this will have been for nothing. Okay, so our elevation turret is zeroed. Now we'll do the side. We need to go left 1.4, 1.5. Make sure she's right there on 0. Tighten it down. Okay. Our windage turret has now been re-zeroed as well. Now that that has been done, there's one last thing we need to do before we can move back to our farther distance and shoot this thing and get it dialed at 1,000. And that is to open up our ballistics app and input all the information. Now it is going to ask for a scope height, which is important. There's a couple ways to measure that. First off, you could just take a tape measure, and it's center to center. So you're going to go center of bolt to center of the scope, and that'll get you close. But if you want to be really exact, I don't have a set of calipers with me right now, but what you would do is take your calipers and measure the diameter of your scope right here. Say it's 2 inches. You will take that diameter, get 2 inches, divide it by 2 to find center. So an inch is center of your scope. And you'll take your bolt, take the diameter of that. Say this is 1 inch here. You'll get that inch divided by 2 is 1/2 inch. So you've got 1 inch of bottom of scope to center, 1/2 inch of top of bolt to center. And then you will take the gap between the top of the bolt and bottom of the scope. Say here it's 1 inch. And add those together, and that will give you your scope height. So right there you have 1/2 inch from center of bolt to top of bolt, plus 1 inch of gap, so that's 1.5 inches, and then plus 1 inch of scope to center is 2.5 inches. So my scope height would be 2.5 inches. That number is important because it will be asking for that in your ballistic calculator. So now that we've got that, let's pull out our phone. So we're going to open up the Revic app. Now I've already got a profile made for this, but we're just going to pretend like I don't, and we're going to start anew. One thing I might add that is very important is you want to, I recommend that you sign in, because I have had this app sign me out of it and I lose my stuff. So once you've signed in and you have made any changes, you want to hit settings and then hit sync. So we're going to go ahead and go to Profile Manager, create our new rifle. We're going to call this the 6.5 1,000-yard video. We're going to go 0 range is 100. Now 0 elevation offset and windage offset isn't a big deal. This is where you would get really picky if you wanted. So if you remember, I was 0.32 minutes low and I went up 0.25 because that's all my scope would do. So if you wanted, you could add in that negative 0.06 inches low that I was, but that is really picky and we don't need to get that picky. So caliber is 264 for a 6.5 Creedmoor. Our scope height is 1.97. Twist rate is 8 inches on this rifle. Twist direction is right. And then we're going to go ahead to ammo, Hornady. We're going to find our 140 grain ELDMs right there. Now this should have your information already in it as far as the bullet, other than your velocity. So we're going to type in our velocity, which was 228.64, I believe. Then our chrono distance doesn't matter. Then here's where, if you were a reloader, you can type in your powder factor and all of that stuff. Now here, the most important, we're going to go to drag function. This app defaults to Doppler. We're going to change it to G7, which is your modern bullet, today's modern bullet drag curve for long range bullets. So most of your bullets are a G7. And then right there, it's going to show you the BC 0.326. Going to have that set. Everything looks good. Now we're going to go back up, and right here you'll notice firearm to the right of it, there's a ZR, which stands for 0 range, and then there's a ZA, which is your 0 angle. You're going to turn that on, hit find, and this is where you account for the conditions that you were shooting in to get a more accurate 0. So we were about 225 degrees, which is your azimuth is just the direction you were facing compared to north, so north is 0. Shooting angle is 0. We're going to go down here, elevation, our pressure, our temperature, and our humidity. Now I've got it set on auto so it picks up a weather station. Got all that set. Then our wind speed was 0, so we're going to hit calculate, and that's going to spit us out a number. And we're going to go ahead and set that. So once we've set that number, that's basically What that does is now when I go and shoot tomorrow morning in the mountains and it's 20 degrees and it's raining on me, so the humidity is a lot higher and the elevation is 3,000 feet more, it's going to account those environmental factors and change that to give you a more accurate number. So once we've got all that set, we're going to go over it, double check it, make sure we did everything right. We're going to come out of it. Oop, I did B instead of V. And like I said, once you've done that, you want to hit the settings button and hit sync so that it saves it, so that if for some reason the app crashes, you can open it back up, sign in, and you still have all your information. Okay, we're going to go back up to the top, put in our calculator, 6.5, 100V, and now our app is set. We can now go back to our farther distance and shoot our rifle to true it. And this is where it gets important as far as being accurate. Alright guys, we're out here at distance, so we're going to go ahead and grab a rangefinder and verify our range. We've got 570 yards, so we're going to go ahead and put that into our app. Open up the Revic app. We're going to type in 570 yards. At our azimuth, which I believe we're going to open up Onyx, should be around 245. Make sure our temperature is good, our humidity and pressure. There's a slight wind, but we're not going to call for it. So we'll set that to 0. And it is telling us to dial 12 minutes of angle. So we're going to go ahead and put that into the rifle and shoot a 3-shot group, and we'll go from there. Okay, we're going to get set up. Okay, so it's calling for 12 minutes of angle. Dial 12. This is where parallax was important, like we talked earlier before. Now I will add, this is only 570 yards. I do not have access to 1,000 yards at the moment. And like I mentioned earlier, the farther you can do this, the more accurate it's going to be. But here where I've got velocities, and we're going to change the ballistic coefficient, at this range at this range we can get pretty dang close, and it seems to work pretty good. Obviously, the farther you go, the better it's going to be. But doing this at 570 is going to get us close enough. We're going to get comfortable. We're going to do one little dry fire. It is very important that there is no human error in this, because this isn't shooting for fun at the moment. This is shooting for accuracy to set your rifle up. Okay, we're nice and comfortable. Go ahead and dry fire. Okay, that felt pretty good. Double check that we've dialed. We are ready to go. Well, that looks like a bullseye. That's obviously what you want, but that doesn't really help me showing you how to true it. So we'll shoot our group, and then I'll obviously go over how you would do it if you're not getting those kind of numbers. It's important not to rush your shot. If you have to, just start over. Okay, third and final. Okay, that's 3 shots at 570 yards. They look pretty dang good. We'll go down there and measure to be exact, and we'll go over truing your profile. And once that's done, we're ready to shoot it at 1,000 yards. Alright guys, so this is a pretty dang good group. I will take it all day. You can see this bolt is a little low. These two were almost dead nuts. Right here, this where it opens up vertically is your muzzle velocity. So earlier we seen the standard deviation was up, so that's why that one's a little low. We are still going to account for that because that is our group. And so what you're going to do is you're going to measure all 3 of these bullets. So here, you're going to want a calculator ready to go too. So let's pull out our calculator. What you're going to do is, so our first one, starting with the lowest, we are from center. We are 3.5 inches low, so 3.5. And then the second one from center, we are about ½ inch low, so plus 0.5. And then this other one is just a little higher, so this will be a plus negative. So from center, we are about just a ½ inch high, so plus 0.25 negative gives us a group of 3.75 inches low. Alright, real quick, I did make a mistake on my math with the truing, and I just want to make that clear so that you guys do not have any problems. I went 3.5 inches low plus 0.5 inches low plus 0.25 inches high, which gave us 3.75. That's where I went wrong. I said average. What I didn't do is I was supposed to divide those by 3 to get your average. So on average, after dividing by 3, I was low 1.25 inches. So I went wrong with the original 3.75. I forgot to divide that to get the average. Now we are going to convert this number into minutes of angle. I'll put up the formula, but how we do that is you take your 3.75 divided by your 1.047, and then you divide it by 1/10 of the yardage. So at 570 yards, it's going to be divided by 5.70, which equals 0.62. So we are, on average, 0.62 minutes of angle low at 570. So now that we've got how low we are, we're going to open up the Revit app. And we're right here, when you go hit the arrow, you'll go back, you will see truing profile. You want to make sure all the information you had typed in when you were at your range, so 570, is still in there because you were truing off of those numbers. So we'll go to the truing. Okay, and you'll notice, so once we type in those numbers, you've got your 570 like we had before. And you're going to hit that, and then we're going to add in our, right here where it says adjustment. This is where I like to measure my group and get the total minutes of angle that I am. So like I said, we were 0.62 minutes of angle low. So instead of typing 12 on the adjustment part, we're going to type in 12.62. And then you'll see that it spits out 2 numbers, an updated muzzle velocity and an updated ballistic coefficient. Where we have a chronograph and we trust that our muzzle velocity is accurate from what we've typed into the app, we're going to go ahead and change the ballistic coefficient, and that is going to be the most accurate. And then we are going to be solid. We're ready to go out to 1,000 yards and shoot. You might have to do some minute changes, but you should be pretty good to go. And that is why that is the preferred method. But if you do not have a chronograph, this is where you're going to go ahead and set the muzzle velocity. You're going to change that. If you're going off the box, obviously the box is wrong here, you're going to hit set on the muzzle velocity, and that will update it. Now, like I said, the problem with that is if your muzzle velocity is actually incorrect, this new number that you put into it, you're going to be 0 at 100, and at 570 yards, you're going to be zeroed. So anywhere between that distance, you're going to be a little high, which it doesn't matter. But past 570 out to 1,000 plus, you're going to see it open back up again because your drag curve is not 100% correct. You basically just changed the angle of your drag curve to bring it up to match at 570. So that is why it is preferred to have a chronograph and change the BC. And like I said, that is why it's preferred if you are going to go off of muzzle velocities because you don't have a chronograph and you're just doing the box. Then, like I said, the farther distance you shoot this at and do this, the more accurate it's going to be. If this was 1,000, then now we're zeroed at 100 and dead on at 1,000. We may be a little more high, like 600-700 yards are going to be a little high. They're going to be high everywhere. It's going to kind of open up and then start to close back in until it's zeroed at 1,000. But it's going to get you pretty dang close and you're ready to rock. So
pretty good left and right. I think that was in the orange.
Cash money there.
that's fucking
Yeah.
go, dude.
That exploded the orange.
Something I might add, do not pay too much attention to left or right. Right here you'll see I was pretty dang nuts, no problem. But there was little to no wind. Sometimes if you've got wind, or you'll also have your twist rate effect that'll happen to your rifle, and that's why you'll notice that it says the hold left, even when there's no wind. It's accounting for your twist rate. As long as you know that your scope is truly level, because if it's not, then this is going to be a problem. But if your scope is level and you trust it, then if you have any bullets to the right or left, those aren't too problematic for this. It could be the wind, it could be your twist rate, you didn't hold enough, it could be a multitude of things, but all we care about is our up and down for our truing profile. So, okay, and once you've got all that, like I said, if you're a guy that wants to print out this chart so that you have a faster way to read, so that when the heat of the moment's going on and you don't have time to pull out your phone and actually type in all these numbers, you'll go on the same app, you'll have table solution, you'll click on that, then you'll enter in all the environmental factors that you plan on hunting in. So say you've e-scouted the area, it's going to be 7,000 feet. The temperature is probably going to be 30 to 50, so let's call it 40 degrees. You're going to put in all that information, and then you can hit the variation, so like 50, every 50-yard interval, 100-yard interval, wherever, out to your distance. Set that, and then you'll scroll over, and it'll give you your dope chart, your energy, everything like that. That's my method on how to do it. If you have any other questions you might want to ask, go ahead and leave them in the comments. And like I said before, if you want to see how I mount a scope and get it leveled, then let me know that too, because that is a very important step. Otherwise, you're going to see a lot of change left to right, and it'll also mess up your height, because if your scope is not level, you will be shooting low no matter what. That's how I do it. Thank you for watching, guys.